Hello, I'm Belva Davis, and welcome to This Week in Northern California. Joining me on our news panel tonight, Marisa Lagos, Sacramento reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, on lawmakers' response to the governor's budget proposals, and Tom Vacar, consumer editor with KTVU, on the announced deal between Toyota and Tesla. Tom Vacar, there's still a lot developing on this story, but it broke yesterday. We know that there's a new partnership and that the NUMMI plant might reopen. What else do we know?
Well, what we know is that this happened very, very quickly, almost too quickly. This plant has only been closed for 7 weeks, and suddenly Toyota and Tesla have some sort of a deal in the work. Toyota's going to invest $50 million. Tesla already has $465 million loan from the federal government to get this thing going. Yesterday, Daimler bought a $50 million share, 10% interest in Tesla. A lot of people don't know that. Tesla says it's going to invest $200 million, which is a very small amount of money in retooling this plant. Now, they're going to use a very small corner of this plant because they're only going to make 20,000 cars a year. To give you a sense of what that is, 65 cars a day. That is a pittance compared to a regular car factory. But sitting there, all ready to go, is this other very large factory. Now, what's in it for Toyota? Toyota makes all kinds of cars at all different sizes, but they're all gasoline, and they do have the hybrid, the Prius, and a couple of others like that. But the reality is they're way behind in the electric car business. Tesla has a revolutionary drive system, which really can give these cars like this $50,000 sedan they're going to manufacture there. They say it has a range of 300 miles. That's way better than just about any other electric car out there. So if Toyota can license that technology the same way it licenses hybrid technology to other manufacturers, now suddenly it's the biggest player in the electric car business. And let's face it, Nissan is coming out with the Leaf next year, an all-electric car. Chevy is coming out with the Volt, which is kind of a hybrid, but more of an electric car than it is a gasoline car. These are real players in the game, and Toyota was way behind. So I have a feeling that these conversations have been taking place for a long, long time, but they wanted to make sure that they didn't do anything until they were sure the NUMMI thing was put to bed.
And who again was the surprise investor? You said we hadn't heard much about that?
Daimler, Mercedes, the people that do that. Now you think about that, makes sense, because now you have a U.S. base, but you have a Japanese, an Asian automaker, and you have a European automaker, and all these technologies can be cross-licensed, and because this is such a revolutionary product, it makes very good sense for them to do that. Plus, it's going to give them a worldwide reach very, very quickly.
Isn't there another angle here for Toyota? I mean, does this help burnish their image after all of the troubles of the past year or so?
There is no question that Toyota's image, especially in California, its single largest market outside of Japan, has been badly hurt, not only by the problems that they've had with the recalls and all that stuff, but they closed the last car plant west of Texas. So there was a lot of bad feelings about this. Suddenly, 7 weeks later, they come back knocking on doors saying, we're ready to do business again. The real potential of this plant is not just 1,000 people that Tesla will hire when they start building these cars in 2012. Remember, we're only talking, a year and a half to 2 years down the road where cars are going to be coming out of there. But you have this big plant. If they can start putting Corollas or Camrys or any of these other vehicles with this drive system in there, now you're talking about many thousands of people working in that plant, not to mention the many, many suppliers, some of which are on life support, some of which have just closed down temporarily hoping to get new business, some of which are gone. But there are many, many suppliers, many talented people, plus the original NUMMI workers that can really put together cars. And the one thing that Tesla doesn't know how to do, which Toyota knows, prodigiously, is building mass quantities of cars. Tesla knows how to do technology. Toyota knows how to build cars.
What about the NUMMI workers, the auto workers that were there before?
Well, they really have no stake in this other than the fact that Elon Musk, the CEO, says that they're very interested in hiring NUMMI workers, and they've actually started hiring a few to get the plant, ready and all of that stuff. But what is even more interesting than that is that these workers are some of the best car builders in the world. They know the Japanese construction system. You can apply it to Teslas as well as you can to Toyotas. So there's a ready workforce here, which is why Downey, which until yesterday thought that it was going to get this plant in an old NASA facility, they were turned down, and this was...
What do you think the chances are for the union being part of all of this?
Well, Elon Musk, the CEO, has said that he is neutral about that. I think that is going to be up to the workers. The question is, are the workers going to want to have a union there? My guess is that, you know, if you want to get the best workers that know how to build cars, you're going to have to contend with that issue. On the other hand, this is a brave new world. There's no guarantees that electric cars are going to catch on as quickly as they need to. So it's a little bit of a crapshoot here, but there's a lot of money being put on the line, and usually when you put that kind of money on the line, you're not betting on losing.
Well, Tom, it's good to have you on to talk about some good news.
Yeah, for once.
Marisa Lagos, this week the Democrats had their chance to talk back to the governor about the proposals that he's made in terms of hitting programs that benefit the poor quite heavily. Also, the Democrats are saying they will no longer negotiate a budget deal the way they used to, that they're changing, they want to change the way that this business is done. Can they do either of those things?
Yes and no. I mean, I think it's clear at this point that a lot of the proposals the governor put out here, eliminating welfare to work, we'd be the only state without a program like that. I think that was the beginning of a long, hot summer of negotiations. Now, you mentioned the idea of kind of taking this out of the Big Five, doing this more open. The new Assembly Speaker, John Perez, has said that from the beginning. Whether or not he can do that is really going to be up to other people besides just him. I mean, the Senate Pro Tem, Darrell Steinberg's been there for a couple years. Unions are already hitting him. The CTA put up billboards this week saying, Mr. Steinberg, we need your help. We can't cut more teachers. So he's one player, but I think a lot of this really goes back to Governor Schwarzenegger. He likes those Big Five negotiations. His chief of staff, Susan Kennedy, tends to like them. And whether or not they can really do this in the open sort of budget process, I'm not sure.
Quickly, what is the Big Five?
I'm sorry. The Big Five would be the four Democratic and Republican leaders in both houses and the governor. And what's happened since Governor Schwarzenegger's taken office is that you tend to see a lot of the sort of really big picture stuff happening behind closed doors. It used to be that they only went and sat down at that table when they were trying to hammer out the really sort of end details of this budget. But yeah, I mean, this week the Assembly, a committee already rejected his proposal to cut this welfare program. That's 1.4 million Californians affected, 80% of them kids. We're talking about $1.2 billion there. The other thing the Democrats just out of hands have said no way to cuts to the in-home support services, which provides at-home care for elderly people. And one of the things with all these issues that you're going to hear a lot from Democrats is that it's not just the, you know, $12 billion or so in cuts that you're making. You're also going to lose federal funds. You're going to lose tax dollars. So there's a lot at work.
Schwarzenegger is weak because he's had a very bad run, meaning, you know, the state's in a terrible financial shape. He's also a lame duck. I mean, is he really a player in this? I mean, he's going to certainly go through the budget, but is he really a player, or is he kind of a weak player now?
I think he's going to do as much as he can to keep himself relevant, and given the sort of size of this budget and the fact, this budget deficit rather, and the fact that Republicans have always managed, as much as they don't like him, I think they dislike him more than Democrats, they usually close ranks, and the Democrats still fight amongst themselves. If that happens again this summer, I think you'll see that he is as relevant as he's been in years past.
You mentioned Senator Steinberg, and then you have John Perez, who's new to the legislature,
right,
new as the Speaker. What's the relationship between those two Democrats?
You know, I think that remains to be seen. We haven't seen any public clashes. Wouldn't consider them particularly close per se. You know, John Perez came from a union negotiating background, and so you know, I think there's a lot of things from that he can take to this that could be positive. But we're talking about a very different situation when you're negotiating an $85 billion budget compared to, you know, a union contract for private companies. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think definitely Perez and Schwarzenegger have not started off on a good foot. We saw last week the Speaker was at Pebble Beach at a fundraiser while the budget was rolled out. He came out this week and, as one columnist put it, kind of stuck his foot in his mouth when he basically said, well, the governor did this because, because I was there on this day. Well, the Constitution says when he has to put out this budget.
Well, I guess if you can take a silver lining from this is that you think that the governor really didn't mean it when he said he wanted to get rid of all of the welfare programs for the state. Well, we hope not.
We'll see.
Okay. Well, my thanks to both of you for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Belva.